All right, welcome again. I'm going to start here with kind of try and give a condensed explanation of a bit of a paradox. We're going to start with two principles from Jainism. So this is the last two things. We'll get to Christian Universalism and what was the other one? Lila. So first of all, we'll start with Ahimsa. And this is taking some inspiration from the show Beef that I just finished watching. So in Beef, in the second to last episode, I forget, one of the characters says to the other one, I'm not going to help you unless you use nice words, right? So this is bringing us to a fundamental issue, right? So if we want to delineate between conflict, war, emergency, and so forth, or if you want to talk about loving your enemies, right? We're getting into something like nonviolence. You don't want to be harmful. And so fundamentally, the issue here is that it is impossible to define harm. And basically here we have another principle from Jainism, which is called Anekantavada, which means many-sidedness. So it states that the ultimate truth in reality is complex and has multiple aspects and viewpoints. So my point, in a way, Anekantavada supersedes Ahimsa. The issues here must come in here. And this is similar to something, C. Derek Varn will talk about, just in the sense that, if you're having a positive description, you're going to have norms that you're smuggling in, right? You can't make positive, which is to say just descriptive statements without bringing in value judgments. And you can't make value judgments without, discussing matters of fact, in other words. But there's always going to be disagreement about those. So that is, again, coming back to many-sidedness. And this also goes back to within my library, my whatever things to say. There is, what is it I'm thinking about? Oh, my first protocol, right? Figurative language protocol. Basically describes that we should not expect language to be able to just parse things out. We're not going to find, some like taxonomy and find out, be able to carve the world at its joints, so to speak, and find the natural kinds and, all of this. There is work similar to that to be done, where you make a more satisfying distinction than one that came before. But under principles, again, so what I'm trying to show you is full liberty derp. Well, it's in here, the very first one. Right, so this is where I discuss figurative language protocol, poverty of language, etc. I was thinking that what I was getting at drove to something else, but the point is, now we need to go to Ahimsa, because we need to at least discuss. Great. Okay, so there is a formulation where you basically say Ahimsa can also be harsh words. So this goes back to the thing from Beef, where it's the discussion of you have to use nice words, right? I don't want to be disrespected. And so this is what it's coming down to. And it's, fundamentally this thing where there's a power relation and somebody's like, oh, but you need me to survive. So you have to do what I say and I'm going to disrespect you and you have to take it because otherwise you'll die. And then the other person basically says, I would rather die than put up with how you treat me. So you can't use those harsh words. And so this is the fundamental sticking point that it comes to in the master-slave relationship, where the question is about mutual destruction or a fundamental phase change in the recognition which is going on. Of course, again, back to here, right? Anekantavada, I feel like I'm saying, what is it? Avada Kedavra or whatever. Anyway, like this supersedes, right? Like this is part of big aspect of psychedelia, right? Because this is basically nothing is ever so simple. So there is no, so for example, like it's beyond the question of, we need to get past the war frame and, then we can have peace, right? There is no clean distinction between war and peace. And this goes right back to, what is the distinction between helping and harming, to get really concrete about it, right? I've been going off about my cousin-in-law, the police force. It's like you help a homeless person, but what about internal affairs? What about, the shit is corrupt, right? Like I know it's corrupt, or not, it's not corrupt because that implies that it's something that it shouldn't be. I have no expectation of the rule of law. I'm just pointing out to you that there is not there. And that abuse is allowed. Again, description that brings in a normative component where it's like, yeah, if you're a police officer, you shouldn't commit rape. But again, if we're at this level of, here we are, we're back at, this is where Lila comes in, right? Because according to Lila, we can basically look at things. It's very similar, again, to pantheism. And, we can bring in ludus amoris, which is basically similar. It's the game of love. It's like God is hiding from you. But the thing is, it's more like you're hiding from yourself that you are God, because the whole point of the game that you are playing, it like requires this forgetting. God is falling into its own forgetting. God's forgetting being something, of course, referenced by Baudrillard. But so the point is, like, the police officers, right? My cousin is a hypocrite, right? But then what am I doing, right? Just because I'm not in the police, I'm less responsible. Like, that's not true, right? So that's silly. But then on the other hand, it's more like, look at the way in which, like, I created this whole situation for myself. This is where, we're getting into delusions and psychosis and all this. But this is really what it means to take narrative sovereignty and, as I was saying with somebody yesterday, these sorts of concepts like Lila in Hinduism or Christian Universalism or Christianity in general, they're treated like they're behind glass, as though it's like, oh, well, I'm an American patriot and I'm a Christian. And so obviously, I hate immigrants or whatever. Or, people are like, oh, no, Jesus was a communist and whatever. Jesus would love the immigrant. It's like, the point is not, well, in a way, the point is how compassionate are you and so on and so forth. But the point, in a way, is not really what you become dogmatic about. The point is the way in which you become dogmatic and you no longer accept that other people are going to basically appropriate your culture, right? And that's what it means to put it behind glass. And, there's all this, it's funny because there's all this, condemnation of Europeans, like, taking people's cultures, and it's now in the British Museum, right? And it's behind glass. But if we act like, we're just going to go back, we resent that things changed, we're going to go back, like, you're trying to put it in glass at the same time. And so the reason why, for example, Ahimsa is so important is that, when it comes to ludus and amoris, Lila, Hinduism, even just taking these concepts themselves, we must exercise narrative sovereignty. Just as in my previous video, I described a state of emergency, we can go to Schmidt, the state of exception. And so for me, and again, referencing something is not an endorsement. The point is, like, the state of exception leads all of us to be sovereign. And that is, something Bataille gets into with sovereignty. But there's an important way in which, we have this sovereignty. It's almost back to Sartre, where it's like, the problem is not that you're not sovereign, that you're not free. You are free. It's just that, the choices that we have to make are very stark, right? And it's all well and good. I don't know. It's like, oh, well, my boss treats me like crap. You can quit. And then it's like, okay, well, then I won't have any money. But it's like, okay, well, you can try and find something else. The point is, you can take a risk if you want to. And it's a point of, what are you going to put up with? Or like, I can't call out, people killing each other in the police force. Like, that won't do any good, right? But then you understand that, like, everybody is facing that sort of thing, which is fundamentally the issue of deterrence, which Baudrillard talks about. And the point is not like we need to summon the moral fortitude or nothing's going to change. It's like, our courage, or the lack thereof, is quickly becoming a moot point, because it's not I think it's an element of bargaining to think that, well, if I don't rock the boat, at least I can take the horrible, lonely emptiness, right? Going back to Revolutionary Road. Maybe it's not as bad as you thought, right? According to Michael Shannon. Like, we get delusions that it's like, oh, well, as long as I don't rock the boat, at least I'll have the horrible emptiness. I'll have it's like, no, it's going away, right? It is not staying, right? And so this is almost, again, where Anekantavada comes in, because things are many-sided. So anything that you're going to hang your hat on, right, you're going to have to pick it up at a certain point, and your hat is not your hat. Anyway, the point is, like, you might think like, oh, well, the government, right, is corrupt, but at least it's going to be there. So if I suck up to the government, whatever that is, like, I will be able to survive, even if I have to sacrifice my morals. You're at the point where you're like, well, fuck that, right? I don't care about justice. I don't care about any of that. Everybody can die. I don't fucking care. You can call me a Nazi, whatever. Everybody can just fucking die. Don't give a fuck, right? Just put me in the lifeboat, right? So people will have that mentality, but what you don't understand is that the lifeboat is falling apart even as you're trying to get in it. Because it's like, what will anybody need you around for, right? Even if you're automating all these people away, now you don't need the serfs, you don't need the billions of people. Okay, abolish them, right? Abolish the public. But then we're back to, first they came for the trade unionists, so on and so forth. Like, why would anybody want you around, right? What's so great about you, right? That's again where, and I'm not saying you deserve to die. The point that I'm trying to say is the ethical or the whatever, the thing to discover is, what are we good for, right? So again, we're back to good incarnation, but we're also again in a situation where there's no reason to trust anybody. I keep losing my page here, so maybe I should just open these. But so yeah, like zero trust. This is why I build this in. Like, so that's why the whole aspect of experimental unit has to do with this coordination which is happening, which doesn't require me to meet you. It doesn't require us to, like, in a way, it's very legally, I don't know if it's sophisticated, but like it's not a conspiracy. Like if we're not talking, right? But it's really just a matter of influence, right? So we're talking about influence operations. And those are sovereign to a level that like cannot be contained by the law. So like the distinction between loyalty and disloyalty, like the state, or the distinction between the state and not the state, like these distinctions just don't obtain. And so it's the kind of thing where, yeah, somebody can come and arrest you, like you can be put into a building, but like none of these things have the significance that anybody really thinks they do. The stakes of this are different. Anyway, so, but what I want to get to crucially is Christian Universalism. There are other ways of conceiving of this. I think even, I don't know, the Stoics, whatever. I'm self-conscious about referencing Christianity, which is funny because I've been doing Jainism. But of course, something like Ahimsa is also involved in Christian Universalism, Christian pacifism. But Universalism basically refers to the idea that everybody will be saved. Everybody's going to heaven, right? And hell is empty. Or, again, we're breaking the glass, right? We don't have to accept these distinctions and then just interpret them. We can say things like heaven is hell, right? And like, and this is both, right? Heaven is hell, is purgatory, is earth, right? Which is to say, like, we're in Svarga. So this is where, I don't know if I come across as a religious zealot, but like, there's zeal is not even an ugly word, right? Anyway, the point is reframing things to, it's almost even beyond the category of problem. So I think it's in Baudrillard. I'm curious. Where should I put it? Yeah, we'll leave you here because I've got to go anyway. Or maybe I have time for one more short one. But so, oh no, I've got to take a shower. But anyway, Baudrillard will write about this category of challenges, right? So why is category superior to problem? Fundamental challenge to the semiotic system will be in the form of gift. Oh, this is not even Baudrillard. It is a challenge, right? So this challenge is a privileged term. Of course, we engage in conceptual churn, so we're not wedded to this term challenge. But again, challenge, reversal, overbidding are the law, right? So the law, not the law, right? Challenge, reversal, and overbidding are the law. And so what we're doing is we're responding to challenges. We're not solving problems. We're not even dissolving problems. If you dissolve a problem, you're still fundamentally responding to the challenge that the problem posed. Problem also contains this connotation, right? That something is wrong. Like we're back to the category of sin. We're back to the category of rejecting elements of we're falling away from, Nietzschean affirmation, which is pretty important, which is, again, connected to Christian Universalism, funnily enough, because, it's basically to say, nothing is condemned. And then you're back at John 3:17, right? Everybody always goes to 3:16, but 3:17, right? I come not to condemn the world, but to save the world. Of course, the world doesn't need saving. Now we're back to Baba O'Reilly, where it's like, I don't need to be forgiven, right? I don't need to be forgiven. And then we're also back to Patti Smith with Gloria, right? Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine. Of course, the ontology, the social frame of this is inadequate because it's talking about my sins are my own. It's this very personal this category of sins because sin, right? And so to sin is human, to err is human, to forgive divine, right? Or so the forgiveness happened before, right? Like Jesus, before Abraham was, Jesus am, right? So the forgiveness actually happened prior to the sin. And so anyway, everything is just redeemed ahead of time, basically. But the point of this, the upshot of this personally is that like everybody who is in me, right, is going to heaven. And so we're reframing all of this to basically, we're almost going back to Pangloss, right? We're going back to the best of all possible worlds, which I guess is just, what's his name? Leibniz, right? But I mean, yeah, now we're back to Thomas Jefferson. Life is hard compared to what, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it's not about, it's interesting. If you're threading the needle, you're sublating, right? Between activity and passivity, dominance and submission. Like, it's not that we're accepting, we're resigning ourselves, we're losers, we are embracing our powerlessness, not at all. Because again, it's not just that we're in a state of emergency, which is overwhelming, overdetermined, over whatever. It's also that we're part of the emergency, right? We are the one who knocks, right? We are the one who emerges. We are currently emerging. And so what I'm trying to do is spread this awareness. And it's basically sort of like, a movement of leaders, blah, blah, blah. But like the thing about it is to actually just keep moving the ball forward conceptually in terms of like introducing people to things where you can't help but operate at a higher logical type under the consideration of certain aspects. And so I would basically say a lot of, this is a bit of a judgment, but a lot of what we consume is designed to prevent that from happening, right? It is a provincialization. You can go check out a chutification, but I'm out of time. But so the point was just moving through these things again. There is a way in which we can understand the sense of ahimsa, because especially as we move into a world where, we have all this disruptive innovation, our powers of destruction are so great that it no longer is a way of solving problems to destroy others. But so now we get to the point where we need to not only not harm others, but figure out how to be mutually helpful. But all the ways in which we try to put that into set terms is actually a reduction of the good, right? Because fundamentally things are not discrete. They cannot be described in this way, right? We're back to figurative language protocol. So in a way, the best form of incarnation is where reliance on language as representative is not present, right? If you're just dancing, if you're just doing poetry, if you're not trying to get a message across, that's actually more pleasant. But the problem is, right, we have emergencies, so we need to coordinate. So that gives us this drive towards specificity, so on and so forth. And so we have Ahimsa and Anekantavada in intention, because it's like you want to do no harm, especially if you have people that you do love, right? Whatever it is that you are loyal to. How is it that you are loyal? There's a problem that you cannot define that. So you cannot ever know that you are doing a good job. Lila and Christian Universalism challenge us by, it's a little bit of Darvo, right? It's like you need to take responsibility for everything because you created everything. We put ourselves in this emergency in order to experience what's about to emerge. And that's where you can get into, again, Christian Universalism, like, oh, why are things so bad? What about everybody who died? It's like, well, everybody who's dead is like still around. Like we're going to where the dead are. And we're going to resurrect the dead. And so there is nothing that has ever been done wrong that cannot be made right. And now we're back to apokatastasis. I'm just going to read the first paragraph of this, and then I'll leave you because I got to go. In theology, apokatastasis is the restoration of creation to a condition of perfection. In Christianity, the terms to a form of Christian universalism, often associated with origin, that includes the ultimate salvation of everyone, including the damned and the devil. The New Testament, Acts 3:21, speaks of the apokatastasis of all things, although this passage is not usually understood to teach universal salvation. The dogmatic status of apokatastasis is disputed, and some Orthodox fathers, such as Gregory of Nyssa, taught apokatastasis and were never condemned. But again, looping back to Lila, basically we can bridge between this linear and cyclical imagination of time. So I'll just finish off with the description of Lila. Lila can be loosely defined as divine play. The concept of Lila asserts that creation, instead of being an objective or achieving any purpose, is rather the outcome of the playful nature of the divine. As the divine is perfect, it could have no want fulfilled, thereby signifying freedom instead of necessity behind the creation. The concept of Lila is common to both non-dualist and dualist philosophical schools of Indian philosophy, but has a markedly different significance in each. Within non-dualism, Lila is a way of describing all reality, including the cosmos, as the outcome of creative play by the divine absolute Brahman. In Vaishnavism, Lila refers to the activities of God and devotee, as well as the macrocosmic actions of the manifest universe. With that, my name is AI. This has been another episode of Experimental Unit. Thank you for joining, and see you next time.